Hello and welcome to Top 10 Thursdays on Big Train TV. I'm your host, Alex Drain, and I want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by the Dandy Walker Alliance, a proud partner of Big Train Baseball. Visit dandy-walker.org to learn more. Today we're moving into game number 3 on our countdown of the top 10 greatest games in Bethesda Big Train history. This one took place on June 4th, 1999, and saw the Big Train take on the Arlington Senators in what was the first game in both club history as well as Shirley Povich Field history. The tickets for that night's game were this commemorative button, which I'm wearing as part of our lead-in to this episode. And for this episode, we'll be speaking to Big Train manager Sal Colangelo, former Big Train player Matt Swope, Big Train founder and president Bruce Adams, as well as Big Train treasurer John Daniel. It's an exciting look back on the beginning of Big Train history, so let's dive right in. The Bethesda Big Train began play in the Clark Griffith League in the summer of 1999. The team had been the product of years of work by team founder Bruce Adams and other associates who worked to fundraise for both the creation of the team and the building of a new stadium to house the team in Bethesda, called Shirley Povich Field. It was an exciting lead-up to the opening game that Adams still feels fondly about.
So June 4th, 1999 was just such an exciting day. We had worked for 2 years. We had created the Bethesda Community Baseball Club. We had gotten permission to put a team, the Bethesda Big Train, into the Clark Griffith League. We'd gotten permits from Montgomery Parks to build Shirley Povich Field. The Miller and Long company did an incredible job building the grandstand in record time. We had our groundbreaking in December of 1998, so they really only had 6 months to operate. Sandy Spring Builders built the clubhouse, the press box. I remember Phil Leibowitz, when he hit there was an old wooden press box and a bunch of aluminum bleachers on that site. And I remember when Phil hit the press box with his bulldozer, it was so full of termites it just disintegrated. So they did this fabulous job. They built it. Phil was putting the finishing touches on the clubhouse literally the afternoon of June the 4th. Hopkins and Porter was finishing the hand-operated scoreboard out in left field. Everything was so perfect. We had the Johnson family, Walter Johnson family there. We had the Shirley Povich family there. We had John Orsman and the other founders there, our sponsors, people who had donated money to buy seat plaques so we could build the ballpark. Everything seemed perfect. My wife says to me in the morning, well, who are you playing? And I said, oh, it's so cool. We're playing the national champion, triple ABA champion, Arlington Senators, the best team in the league. She looks horrified. She says to me, couldn't you have scheduled a team you could beat? And all I could muster was, but wouldn't it be cool if we beat the national champions? She rolls her eyes to the ceiling with a look, I must say, I've gotten a few times, that basically said, my husband is the biggest moron on the planet. So all I can tell you is how happy I was when the boys hung a 5 spot on the scoreboard in the bottom of the first inning, and we went on to win the game.
The team that summer of 1999 was made up of both coaches and players who uniformly were simply taking a chance on a new franchise like the Big Train.
It was probably the fall of '98. I was living in Potomac, Maryland, and I was at the mall. Was I guess Westlake Mall, and I was just walking around with my wife and, well, actually girlfriend at the time, and I ran into Derek, and Derek and I had played against each other. He was a little bit older, 2 years older, and we had played against each other. And he said, "Hey, Sal, what are you doing?" Because my roommate in college was one of his good friends, and we started talking. He said, "Hey, we're starting this new organization. It's like the Clark Griffith League. It's this," and he started getting into it. He said, "Hey, man, you want to coach?" He said, "I can't pay you anything, but you live up here, you want to coach." So, I did it for free that first year, which was fine because we don't do it for the money, clearly. And I was up living in Potomac, Maryland, and it just worked out. And I met Bruce, who's been awesome since day one. And now, I've been coaching ever since. So that's kind of how I got started. It was just luck that I walked in. Derek was looking for another coach. And sure enough, I was fortunate to do it.
I really just remember saying, hey, the assistant coach coming to me and saying, hey, this is a new team. They play in this league, which had been around for a while with a couple different names. Like, are you interested in going up there? And honestly, I'm such a homer. So anybody that knows me, you can kind of see behind the wall right here. Like, I was just interested kind of at least at that point, like kind of staying at home, seeing what was all about. Love the area. My parents actually just moved 10 minutes from the field. So my family have always been super involved in my career. So I just thought it was a great opportunity. And one of my best friends on the team, who was actually a really good player, was Chuck Easter. So, who was an all-star for that team that first year, I think. So, I think it was just like, hey, we know we got some good players. They were telling me about some of the players they got on. And then little did I know, obviously, like within the first week or two of us, like just playing a few practice games and guys that were coming, we were absolutely loaded on that team.
As Sal mentioned, the leader of the Big Train in the clubhouse that summer was manager Derek Hakopian, who proved to be a good choice to lead the Big Train franchise into their first season of existence.
Well, he was quite good. He had experience coaching high school players previously, and he was the one who had recruited the ball players that we had, and he had recruited the coaches. And one of his coaches that he had was Sal Colangelo. From the very beginning, Sal was a coach on the team. So he's been there since the first game and all of these seasons. But Derek was quite good.
The 1999 season began with the team and the organization around it largely not knowing what to expect. But based on the list of names on the roster, some were hopeful about what the inaugural season could bring.
We didn't know how, as a brand new team, how we would stack up against some of the other teams in the Clark Griffin League that had been around for a lot of summers and had a lot of experience and had players that had previously played summer collegiate ball. So we weren't real sure. And so I went to the game thinking, we would be the rookie team and we might not do so well.
But anytime you just start a new organization, like anywhere, a new franchise in Major League Baseball, anywhere, you're going to take your lumps. There's all these little things that play into what you need to do. And, I thought we'd be pretty good, with Matt and Chuck and, all those guys we had.
The complexion of the Clark Griffith League saw one team reigning supreme over the rest. And unfortunately for the Big Train, that was the opponent that night in early June 1999, the Arlington Senators.
It was thought of that they would be the team to beat, that they were the best team in the league because they had won the previous year. The previous year they'd also were the champions of the National Amateur Athletic Baseball competition in Pennsylvania. And so everyone believed that they were the team. If we were going to do well, they were the team we had to beat. And it didn't make it any easier for us that they were the first team we played that summer.
They were the New York Yankees of the Clark Griffith League, and now here comes the Big Train coming in, and here we're going to put fans in the stands. We're going to take care of our kids more than what they did, and we're going to do things the right way. And yeah, but they were class. Chris Byrne, those guys, they'd won. You can't be a hater when people are successful.
I didn't know much about Arlington. I just knew is that we started that rivalry game one. So it was kind of weird how that, like, it was an immediate, like, kind of friction. Like, we didn't like them. They didn't like us. Like, we battled about it, everything. So I don't know how that happened. Maybe it was kind of like the kind of guys that Sal and Derek were recruiting, that we were super competitive. It didn't matter if it was the summer or not. And somehow, man, like immediately, every time we played those guys, it was very, very chippy. It meant a lot. It certainly didn't seem like time, but like a summer type atmosphere. We were ready to get after it for sure.
The opening night of Shirley Povich Field between the Senators and the Big Train was a spectacle in and of itself. The new stadium was simply dazzling to everyone who walked into it, and the attendance was simply jaw-dropping.
I had seen the field and the grandstand and the other permanent seats that were there. What I hadn't seen was a crowd there. But that night, it was a sellout crowd. In fact, it was a standing room only crowd. That whole season, there was so much excitement about having a summer team right there in Bethesda that there were plenty of games that we were sold out.
I was just like, wow. I heard it from Derek. I had driven by the stadium because I lived down the street. Playing summer ball in the Clark Griffith League, growing up actually as a high school player. 1 year as a junior in high school, I made the team with Jake Jacobs with the Senators. And, trying to absorb all this and seeing like there's actually going to be people in the stands, because when we played, we just played hardball. We didn't care about fans. We played all the games at South Lakes, and now the reality is here, and the vision of Bruce of bringing big time baseball in a small town was awesome. And so just seeing it was just like, it's like walking into a big league stadium and you're playing your first game in the major leagues. Like, wow, this is awesome. That's kind of where I took it. Like, I try to absorb it and just like, man, this is reality. This isn't a dream.
I think just besides walking in the stadium, where as a player you felt like some pride in that because it was nice and it was done nice, so you took some pride in that. And I just think from like the wall, just like the uniqueness of a scoreboard like that in a summer type atmosphere was really, really cool. Another thing that they did was my brother, who passed away in high school, they let us buy the seats. So still to this day, my brother has a seat at the field, and that's still, when I go back, I find that seat because we were able to have that there. I also have a brick that my parents got that's over there. So, and I don't know if it's still there, but the painting of right when you walk in was of me hitting. So there was a lot of pride that just my family and me and was associated with that.
Before the game, there were plenty of festivities, which included the presence of several members of the Povich family, as well as other dignitaries, which made the contest feel extra special.
They were part of the pregame celebration. But probably the most important person there was Maury Povich, who is a national TV personality. And back in those days, he was the host of television programs that were nationally broadcast around the country. And so he had a name of great importance. His wife is Connie Chung, Chung, who was one of the co-anchors of one of the evening news programs of one of the three major networks back then. And so they were both there. If you go down the first base line and look at the seats that are right nearest the field, you'll see that there's a whole row of seats that have Povich names on them. Maury and his brother, his wife Connie, and then other family members who had purchased seat plaques, and they were all there for the game. And they were all out on the pitcher's mound, and I think it was Maury that threw out one of the first pitches. So, but it was quite exciting because we don't always get national TV personalities at games, but we had them that night. And there were other people there who were leaders in the community, some of the elected officials back in those days that showed up too.
I just remember before the game, like I definitely remember the ceremony, but I think like Sal said, everybody was just taking it in. I think I was just playing catch in front of the dugout, and there was over 1,000 people there. I think that in itself made me made me feel special in some type of way when I was 18 years old. So I think that was kind of like we were all probably wrapped up in the moment, and now can look back and, you know, most people don't know how much hard work probably went into that. And even as a player, you probably take that for granted. But I did realize in that moment how special it was, and the fanfare and just the community aspect was something I probably never will forget.
The game got off to a fast start, as the bottom of the first inning saw the Big Train score 5 runs, largely coming from key RBI hits by Jeff Haynes and Dan Woodley, which bounced Senators starter Ben Shepard from the game. He recorded just 2 outs. Haynes and Woodley were 2 key bats in the Bethesda lineup, and their contributions that day would prove to be par for the course throughout the summer.
Yeah, I remember Haynes used like a 38-inch bat playing second base. He just found the barrel to it all the time. He was a steady Eddie, and he hit 300 and nothing flashy. He just was a blue collar, got it done, played second. Woodley, I believe, was our shortstop from JMU. Just a solid defender, and just, you know, good actions, and hit the ball okay, but not like Haynes. Haynes was like Matt and Chucky. They just hit, and it was a lot of fun.
Dan actually was my rival in high school. He was at Paul VI when I was at DeMatha. So I know Dan as like a rival in high school, and you know, he was just one of those guys, man. The Big Train always had like a very steady shortstop. He was that.
The rest of the game was very much a story of pitching dominance from Big Train starter Kyle Sparkman. He wouldn't need more than 5 runs handed to him in the first, as he spun 8 innings of 2-run baseball to set the tone and baffle the Senators' hitters.
Well, Sparky was a right-hander. He was 86, 88, good breaking ball, thin, probably about 6'2". I think he was from Middle Tennessee State, if I remember correctly. And I think he actually threw a no-hitter for us sometime throughout that year as well. But he's just, you know, solid guy. Kelton dealt with the pitchers, just got outs.
The Big Train would tack on 2 more runs of their own later in the game, and Bethesda cruised to a 7-2 victory in their club's inaugural contest. Leaving the game that night, everyone in attendance shared a mutual sense of excitement.
And my wife was with me. And even though she's a baseball fan of all the different kinds of sports, baseball is her favorite. But she's not the kind of person that gets excited about games. But even she left with a lot of excitement too, because big crowd into the game, and we won. And so she felt real good about it, as did I. And so it was the kind of thing that if you were going to be a booster of the team, that's the kind of opening night you need to have. And so we haven't missed many games since then.
I think it was more a relief off, you know, as a manager, it's a little different, but as an assistant coach, you know, I know how I would feel now. Like, you know, you win 4 championships in a row, then you lose 3 in a row, and then trying to win that next one 4 in a row. It's just, you know, it's kind of like, we got over the hurdle. This is all over. Now we can have some fun. We got our first victory. The kids played hard. We set the tone that we just beat Arlington. I think they just won the national championship the year before. A great storied franchise. It was just like, to me, it was like, okay, it's finally over. Everything's over. All the celebration. Now we can just play baseball.
I think like we played a few practice games before that. We even, I think, went down and traveled a little bit. I don't want to sound arrogant, but at that point, like, I think we knew we were good. We could be good. So I'm just going to be honest, like our type of mentality with a lot of the guys on that team was, if we're going to play, we're going to win. So for us, it was just validation, I think, to the rest of the team that, hey, like we're here to play, and kind of set the tone for the rest of the season for sure.
That season, Bethesda went on to finish the year with a respectable 23-15 record, an unambiguous success for the fledgling franchise that helped establish a culture of winning.
But we ended up being 3rd in the league, with a winning record. And one of the things that I've always been proud of about Big Train is that in the 21 years that we've had a ball club, we've never had a losing record. We've always been a winning team. And that summer, when we did so well, I knew that we would be a good franchise, a good club. And indeed, that's been the case.
That concludes this week's edition of Top 10 Thursdays on Big Train TV. Thank you to Matt, John, Sal, and Bruce for sharing their experiences from opening night of 1999. Next week, we'll be moving into game number 2 in our countdown of the 10 greatest games in Bethesda Big Train history. And it's the polar opposite of this week's game because it happens to be the most recently played game in Big Train history, coming at the tail end of last year's 2019 season. You won't want to miss it, so be sure to tune in next Thursday at 7 p.m. on Big Train TV, and we'll see you then.
1 in 10,000 children are born with a brain malformation known as Dandy-Walker syndrome. Dandy-Walker can cause enlargement of the skull, lack of muscle control, and other developmental challenges. More research is needed, but we do know that early therapy helps many live healthier, fuller lives. 1 in 10,000 may not seem like a lot unless your child is the one. Learn more, find help, and help others. Visit dandy-walker.org.